Time now for Ask Mike, and joined by Mike Irwin here inside our Pig Trail Nation studio. The Arkansas Razorbacks, Mike, coming off an oh-so-close kind of game against Ole Miss. They were driving, had the ball in their hands. Unfortunately, they just come up a player too short.
Yeah, and it brings to mind this thing about sports, but specifically football, that I've always known, which is you're that far away from being heroes and great guys and everybody loves you to being jerks and no good and you're losers. Yeah. And it's just like that much.
Yeah, and you kind of felt some of the emotion there from Sam Pittman even after the game. You know, some of his frustrations, I believe, 7-18 now in one-score game. So the Razorbacks, the Heartbreak Hogs, man, at it again. All right, here we go. Ask Mike, question number one. First question coming from Just Win, who asked, am I supposed to believe that our horrible defense cost us the game? We were 20 yards away from a win, and the last time I checked, nobody on defense fumbled. They gave up, I think, 481 yards, Mike. It was a long, long night for Travis Williams and company.
Yeah, I like this because I feel that way a little bit myself. Look, nobody's going to argue that in the first half the defense wasn't bad, and we'll get into some of the reasons for that later on here. But there's no question it was bad. They looked disorganized in the first half. But they made some adjustment at halftime, played better. And here's the thing. With about 5-6 minutes to go in the game, Ole Miss has the ball. All they have to do is score, and they'd been scoring pretty much at will. All they have to do is score, and the game's over. Mm-hmm. And they didn't. And they had to kick a field goal, and it left them with a 6-point lead. Now, you don't think Lane Kiffin wasn't nervous about that, the way Arkansas had been moving the ball? Yeah. You're going to sit there and think, I may lose this if they drive down and score on us. And so Arkansas basically is something like 73 yards away when they start that drive. They're also dealing with the clock because they don't want to score too soon because then you give Ole Miss a chance to come back and score.
Pittman made that point even after the game. He said, of course we were worried about the clock.
So I mean, they go right down the field. I mean, 14-yard pass, 18-yard pass, 12-yard run, another pass, and they're right there. And I think the problem and you and I have discussed this, I think the problem at that point was they were too concerned about the clock and started trying to inch their way in, and that's what got them in trouble, which produced the fumble. But the fact of the matter is, if your defense gives you a chance, then I don't know that it's all on them and it's their fault. You can also look at the fact that Arkansas's offense ran all over Ole Miss's defense. Does this mean they stink? You know, they both were the victims of going up against an offense with a really good quarterback, because both teams did have impressive quarterbacks and had a lot of yards rushing, a lot of yards passing. And so some of that defense with both teams, that bad defense, was the offense. Now, not all of it, but I just didn't see that game as demonstrating that Arkansas's defense, what I'm reading after the game is this defense is so bad, we're going to have to score 50 points every game to win, and I don't think that's the case.
So whenever you mentioned the clock there, and Sam Pittman even said, hey, we didn't want to give them a whole lot of time. Armchair quarterback in here. It is Monday after all, right? Monday morning quarterback. Was that the right call? Do you think maybe they overthought it? I mean, hindsight, right? I guess whenever they put it on the deck.
I'm going to try to score.
But Ole Miss's offense had moved the ball all night. It was just the punt where Arkansas got the ball back there late in the fourth quarter, the first possession of the second half. Other than that, they either scored or kicked the field goal every drive.
Yeah, but I'm still going to try to score there, you know, any way you can. And I'm not going to worry about dinking the ball 4 or 5 yards. If I do that, I'm telling, in the huddle, I'm telling everybody, hang on to the ball. Don't take any weird chances. You know, don't try to fight an extra 2 yards. Just deal with the fact that give up 2 yards and hang on to the ball.
It seemed like they just got caught in a rough situation. They're running stuff between the numbers, coming out of the 2-minute warning there. They're trying to run the clock. Jaylen Brown gets stood up, vulnerable position, and Ole Miss got the ball out.
Yeah,
so,
it just happened.
But at the same time, hey, if they would have executed it so well down the stretch as they were trying to do, and being in that building, first off, the atmosphere was electric. You know, it's a very intimate stadium. It's smaller. It was awesome. The night game, the whole thing. And then you got this corner of the stadium that's calling the Hogs, and you're starting to hear these Arkansas fans late in the game. And I was down on the field at that point looking at the Arkansas sideline. They were so confident. Yeah. Everything was organized. Everything was under control, as you alluded to there. 10, 5, 7 yards. You know, they're right in control of the thing. Even the play to Jaylen Brown, which is pretty much on the sticks. Just very unfortunate to have it come to an end like that. All right, next question here. Cajun Hog wants to know, what does it say about our defensive coaches? Their players didn't start showing some fight until Kenai Walker's injury. I'm glad they rallied around him, but they need to play all out from the start of the game. Now, I don't know if the TV cameras picked this up. Incredible moment that shows the character of this Arkansas team. Kenai's on the stretcher. I don't think I've ever seen this before. The entire sideline pours out to offer him support.
Yeah, and they're there. And clearly they came out of that playing a lot harder. They looked like they were playing harder. Now, I'm going to give them a little bit of a pass on this because I don't know, and I don't think any of us do. Sometimes you can look like you're not playing hard when you're confused. I've seen that happen before. I mean, going all the way back a million years ago when I played high school ball, there were times when people looked like they weren't giving effort, but I was out there and I knew somebody was confused.
And along the lines of the confusion, Pittman made it a point to say this twice on Monday. I heard the word simplify. So maybe he thinks some of the broken assignments are because of confusion.
But still, here's what the point I will make. Those players went out of their way to say that they supported this coaching staff and they didn't like, this was at media days, and Xavier Sori was the one that said this. He said, we don't like it when our coaches get criticized. Well, if you don't like it, then don't do things that cause them to get criticized, which means play harder. It looks like to me that what you have with that defense is an offensive unit, a defensive unit, you always need one or two players that are out there on the field that are talking to everybody else and they're respected and they look into the eyes of somebody. Years ago, I'm in a high school game and a guy's all nervous and he's not playing well. And one of our running backs, he was a dominant force on the out, and he got that guy and he looked him right in the eyes and he said, you're going to do this because if you don't do it, next week I'm going to kick your butt every day after school just for you to get back over here to the field house. When you leave the high school building and walk to the field house, I'm going to beat you up every day. And he fired him up.
Seems like something that would have been 30 years ago.
Yeah, but the point is there are things you can do if you're a leader out there on the field to make those other guys understand we got to suck it up right here. So I do like the fact that they rallied around when this injury took place. I don't want that to have to be what it takes in order for them to play that way. So they got to, and Xavier Sori said after the game, he said, look, it's early in the season. We're going to continue to work to get better, and we will get better. So we'll see. We'll see starting this week when they go on the road to play a good Memphis team. Then they're playing a better Notre Dame team that's going to be really mad because they're 0-2. Hopefully they won't lose again to Purdue. But if they do, they'd be 0-3. It'd be hard to beat them in that situation. So we'll see how they bounce back. But I still think this team is better than people think they are.
You and I were talking a little bit, and Sam Pittman also took a question on Monday. Thought on Cam Ball, logged a lot of plays. Clearly he's the heart and soul of that defense.
Yeah, and they're going to need more backup depth. I think they'll have it. You know, they had the injury there, and he's back now and played some, but not enough. And then they're still developing these two freshmen that they like, both of them, and they played a little bit. So hopefully they'll continue to develop depth on that D-line. But, you know, there are some things with Travis Williams was hired and came in here, and I remember this. He had a reputation of having these exotic blitz packages, very complicated. And I was really looking forward to that because there was a lot of feeling at the time that Arkansas didn't do enough of that. And he just hasn't done it here. I don't know if he doesn't trust his secondary. I don't know what's going on there. But if he had that reputation, then come on, man, get in there and dial him up because they've got to somehow start getting to the quarterbacks.
Yeah, again, another thing that Pittman kind of alluded to on Monday. A quick thought on Travis Williams. Look, I'll give him his flowers. A lot better in the second half. They only gave up 10 points. They did force the 2 punts. But those were their only 2 stops of the game. And whenever I look at a box score and I see 525 yards of offense and you lost, I got to think about the defense. You know, if this keeps on happening, what kind of pressure is on his job?
Well, a lot. So, yeah, they don't have much more time to turn this around. I think it needs to happen now. Doesn't mean they win every game from here on out. The scary thing is when you sit at home on a Saturday like I do after our game day show, I'm watching as many games as I can. I'm flipping back and forth. I'm on
Mike Irwin on the remote. I'd love to see that.
Well,
the Apple TV going.
You get on ESPN3 app, and you can watch all the games. You just click back and forth. And I'm watching Missouri, and they've got a good quarterback, and they've got a dynamic running back. You can't even hardly tackle this guy. He's just short and strong, and he's knocking 4 guys back, and they've got a good defense. And then you look at Auburn. They've got a good quarterback. That guy's stout. He can run. He can throw. So Auburn's looking good.
How about Diego Pavia?
Yeah.
31-7 over a top 12 team.
I know you're looking at that going, what is Vanderbilt doing, you know? And then you watch that Georgia-Tennessee game, and they're just going back and forth, and both teams have good offenses and quarterbacks, and they're scoring left and right and left and right. And so you're asking yourself, where's the break here? You got to play Tennessee. You got to play Missouri. You know, you're going to have to play Auburn. You just don't get a break anywhere.
Yeah, tough sledding for Arkansas. A tough game, however. A lot of effort from that team, a lot of fight right to the end. As I said, very organized on the sidelines. So I love what I saw, but man, Mike, it's going to be tough. Looking at this schedule, they better beat Memphis. And then you got Notre Dame, Tennessee, back-to-back games there with the bye in between. All right, time for a break here on Ask Mike. We'll be back with more. Back here on Ask Mike, of course, talking a whole lot about that Arkansas defense, which really kind of let down on Saturday, giving up 41 points. As Taylor Green in that offense put up 35 points. Next question here coming from Eddie Land, who says, so our leaders on defense could not communicate the reads to the rest of the players. So in the second half, we stopped doing reads and played better. Sounds like our coaches are overcomplicating what we were doing. That sounds like something you were alluding to a little bit ago.
Maybe, and I'm not sure what they're going to do about that. But I would say this is not uncommon. Most teams do it, I think. There's a game that goes on with the play clock. So the play clock is at 40, and from 40 down to 15, the offense, the quarterback is out there with a headset on
until either the 20 or 15
second mark. So they can continue to react to what they're seeing from your defense and make changes like that. So he's doing that. But then what they leave you with, if you're the defensive coordinator, is you got 15 seconds. And you're going to try to react to the last thing they do and get that communicated out to 3 or 4 leaders on defense who then have to communicate it to their position groups. And you can see how this could get really confusing because there's a time issue there. So what do? Well, a lot of teams go back to their base defense. They don't even try to do this. Let's just play a good base defense, what we think will work, and we'll take our chances. And that's what they did in the second half, and it worked better. I'm not sure what they're doing about that from here on out. If they're going to give up and go with that, or if they're going to continue to work on doing these reads. But my guess is they will continue to try and work on the communication issues.
All right, next question here coming from S. Giles, who says, I have one criticism of Pittman. He should have gone for it on first down in the first drive of the game. I think that means gone for it on the 4th down instead of kicking the field goal. Putting the pressure on a freshman kicker in his first road game in his SEC career instead of a 50-year senior quarterback. That was a mistake. You agree?
Yeah, I do. And it was a 4th down, not a first down. She just wrote that.
Go for the first down is probably what they meant there.
Yeah, go for the first down. And because it was 4th and 2, I think. Now, look, I'm looking at that, and Pittman explained that. He said, we kind of have a thing where we want them chasing us. We want to score first and let them be chasing us in points. I think if he had known the kind of track meet that would turn into, maybe he would have a different attitude. But the way I look at it is, you got a freshman kicker. I don't care how much faith you have in him. He's on the road for the first time, and you're going to make his first kick on the road be a 51-yarder, as opposed to a quarterback that's been around the block, that's running your offense, that sometimes can run for from like 4th and 12 or 15.
He's been sensational.
And you've just got to gain 2 yards. I just think he made a mistake there. And I think if he didn't do that, Arkansas could have stopped. If they score there, then it totally changes the first half.
Along those lines, are you surprised they won the toss? It's a minor detail, sure. They won the toss. They took the ball. It seems like you want to be in control there, end of the first half, maybe set yourself up for having back-to-back possessions.
I don't know if anybody asked him about that today, but that was another kind of weird thing where you're going,
well, it kind of tied into, he said, we wanted to put the pressure on them. We wanted their young quarterback chasing us. Unfortunately, their young quarterback was ready for the show.
But this gets into this stuff that he gets criticized for, where people say, look, when he doesn't make a lot of decisions because he's letting Bobby Petrino run his offense, he's letting Travis Williams run his defense. But when he has to make these decisions, do I have to kick a field goal or do I punt or do I go for it? Do we if we win the toss, do we take the ball or do we play defense and then take the ball first in the second half, first possession? That when he makes these decisions, they're always wrong. He's got this bad karma.
Probably why you're losing a lot of one-possession games. It comes down to a play or two.
Some people would say that, and I don't know if it's bad karma. I don't know if they're solid. He's making their. I mean, I criticized him on the one thing for sure. I think he should have gone for it, but I don't think that he always makes bad decisions, but he makes a lot of them that end up in the retrospect where you're going, well, I probably shouldn't have done that.
All right, next question coming from a big fan favorite here, Mousetown, who asks, I watch games all day on Saturday. The Ole Miss QB, Trinidad Chambliss, was one of the most impressive I saw, yet we have fans claiming a backup D2 quarterback beat us like it's an insult. There are a lot of dumb people watching football these days. I will say this, that certainly did not look like some D2 scrub. That looked like a very good player. And in fairness here, part of that problem was Arkansas's defense because they had guys wide open.
Part of it, but here's what I think about the fans that are posting that. I think most of them know he was a good quarterback. They're mad, so they take something and make it look worse when they really know that the guy was good. Some of the same fans that are making that point, you know what they were also doing? They were talking about how Arkansas coaches were dumb because Tesla, who was a D2 player and was a backup, he should have been starting. So they're acknowledging that a D2 backup guy can be really good, but not when you're talking about this quarterback. Yeah. And the kid has only started one game, but he's already third in the SEC in QBR rating, whereas Simmons, was ninth, I think. So I really think he's better. If you read the tea leaves, if you were on the internet reading Ole Miss fans
Stay off the internet, Mike.
I'm telling you, I picked this up from a lot of their fans. They were saying all week, this guy is our best quarterback. Yeah. And once he starts, he'll start the rest of the season. That's what they were saying.
The only reason why I kind of second-guess the idea that he is actually their best quarterback, Lane Kiffin is as good of a talent evaluator offensively as any coach in the country. So if he went through spring ball, he went through fall camp, and he said, nope, Austin Simmons is our guy, then that tells me that Austin Simmons was probably their guy. There's not a lot of politicking. But for that kid to get in there in that moment and perform like that, extremely impressive.
What if Kiffin is sitting there and he's going, you know what, this Arkansas team is really good. I need an edge here. I'm going to hold this guy back, and then I'm going to spring him on him in the third game, and they're not going to be ready. So it could have been that.
Hold on. If it's that, how embarrassing was it that Arkansas couldn't get home on Austin Simmons? Did you see him walking on the kid could not move, and they still couldn't get to him.
There was nobody near him. That's why they couldn't get to him. I don't know whether the scheme was bad. Some people claim there was a holding on that play. I don't know what happened, but he also threw the touchdown pass, so on a bad leg. So that part of it's pretty hard to argue against.
Does it piss you off at all? Maybe breaking some of the rules here that Lane Kiffin was coy about the injury status of Austin Simmons. You think he should hear from the conference on that, or is that really not that big of a deal?
Yeah, that's one of the questions, so we'll talk about it here in a minute. But I don't like it.
Great tease there from Mike Irwin. All right, next question here coming from Orville's Ghost, who says, our kids play hard. They do, but it's hard to win in the SEC with 3 stars. Look, if you're evaluating right, you're identifying right, those 3 stars turn into really good players. And traditionally, that's whenever Arkansas has had their best success.
Well, it's kind of I'll go both ways on this. First thing I'll say is, what about Vanderbilt? You think they're loaded with 4-star, 5-star players?
Or some big NIL budget? No, that's not that kind of school.
So they've proven you can win with these players, and I think Arkansas has won some. But what we're talking about here is whether you're an elite team in the league. And here's what I would say about this. Yes, if you want to get up near the top of a conference like the SEC, you got to be able to have the money to go after these guys. So what's the answer here? There's only 2 answers. You're either going to have to raise more money than you have, and I know Hunter Yurachek was at the Little Rock Touchdown Club today and had some things. He was asked, how do we raise more money? So, We'll see what he has to say later on today when you do your sports. But the other way this could change is if the revenue sharing thing is real, if what they're really saying. Mm-hmm. Because what they're saying on revenue sharing is that it's going to eliminate all these big fat NIL deals, and now everybody's going to be under the same cap. I'm not sure I believe that, but here's where it really hits home. It's apparently still going on because a Arkansas top 4-star offensive lineman that was committed to them just left, and he's going where? Texas Tech, where they have.
That was confirmed. He's going to Texas Tech.
I
saw. I think on Friday
he switched his commitment. Now he's not signed yet, but here's the thing: he can't go there under an NIL deal because we've already passed that. If that's real,
and not a phoney NIL deal.
Yeah,
which is what it had become. The spirit of the NIL was great, but how it was actually being used is not what it was designed for.
So I don't know whether this would be the second offensive lineman that they got with revenue sharing money. Now, what are they doing? Unless Texas Tech has decided to use all of its revenue sharing money and just leave the other sports out, which is one of the things Kentucky's doing in basketball, I don't know how they're affording this. So I can't really say all of this right now. It's going to be January. We're now down to one portal period. And then you've got, right after that portal period, January, you go into February, you've got your signing for your freshmen. So we're going to have to be through that cycle before we can look and see how revenue sharing, if it's really changed anything, or if there's schools still out there buying everybody. And I don't know which way it's going.
Explain the portal to me here as far as this, because this is why I got real big skeptical hippo eyes here on this one. So the portal now, if the NCAA gets what it wants, January 2nd from January 11th. Right. School starts most places in the country January 3rd, January 4th. Right. So really, this is going to be on the come up. It's going to be a clean process. That the portal opens and 2 days later they're getting all the paperwork done to get into the school.
That's what they're going to have to do.
It seems like a big load of bull crap, and that it's not really, all the manipulation's still going to be there.
Supposedly, I mean, there's going to be no spring portal period, no post. I mean, what does Sam Pittman say? We don't have a spring game because I don't want guys seeing our players and then stealing them. So that's out. And then now we're told the December portal period is out. So yeah, you're going to have like an 8 or 9 day period in early January.
10 days,
where you got to get these guys in a hurry and get them enrolled in school. The only thing I
just think the tampering's still going to be there.
Well,
and the bowl games, all that stuff's still going to happen.
The only thing I can deduce from this is that maybe by then they figure that all of these revenue sharing deals, they're going to come with a 2-year contract. Mm-hmm. So you can't have, that's what I'm being told. There won't be as many players available out of the portal. Sitting there talking on the phone this morning with a guy that said, here's what's going to happen bringing in guys from the portal. They're going to come from mid-major programs, junior college, it's not even portal. 1AA, because they don't have the ability to take revenue sharing money and sign somebody to a 2-year deal. They wouldn't do it. So you're still going to get players like that. You're still going to get players like Ole Miss's quarterback. So you got to be smart and see who's good out there at a D2 level. So that's how you can bring somebody in. But other than that, if you've got a lot of these guys signed to a 2-year contract, Lane Kiffin's not going to be able to steal a tight end from Arkansas because he will have already signed a 2-year contract. Yep. So, again, we're going to have to wait and see and watch all of this happen before we know if this is true.
And hopefully, too, that with the early signing day being in December, maybe you're starting to supplement your roster more with transfers as opposed to 90% of the country leaning heavily into the transfer portal to build their roster. That was not the intent of the transfer portal, much like the same with the NIL. All right, he's Mike Irwin. More Ask Mike coming up right after the break. Back here on Ask Mike and dissecting what is a very tough loss for the Arkansas Razorbacks at Ole Miss on the road again, going back to the Liberty Bowl, third time, dating back to 2022, this time though, regular season game. All right, next question here coming from Virgil Nix, who says, it's been a long time since I had the feeling of we can close this game out. How about you, Mike? Those that have been with us here all day long, I was saying I felt like they were in firm control, confident, everything going right up until that fumble happened. And there's a reason why Pittman's 7-18 in these games.
Yeah, and Pittman said that, and he said all the players, I'm not there. I don't know what the players were doing. Yeah. But he said he definitely looked like he thought they would do it. I did not. I'm one of those people that was sitting there going, no way.
Here we go again.
Exactly. I thought something's going to happen. It is. I don't know what it is. I don't know if Taylon Green falls down and gets hurt or throws a pick out of nowhere or, somebody fumbles or whatever, but I just didn't feel like they would do it. So he says it's been a long time since he had the feeling that we can close this game out. How about you? Got to go back to Petrino. When Petrino was here, there were games where you thought they're going to figure out a way to win this. And there's been some other coaches here. Houston Nutt had some teams where you thought, they're going to do it.
Even Bielema for a year or two. The Henry Heave game.
Yeah, Bielema there for a while before it started going downhill. And, Hatfield, they had a reputation at times of being able to come back. And with Lou Holtz, his early teams, absolutely. And Frank, the first year I covered him, you had that feeling. They're going to figure out a way to win this. The Georgia game in the Cotton Bowl when they came back and won that game. So it's been a long time. The question is, can it be that way again? Well, eventually, somewhere, somehow, some coach, is it a matter of hiring another coach and then it'll come back? I don't know. You could hire another coach and he could have the same issues. It depends on who you hire. And I'm not absolutely saying it could never happen with Pittman, but it's getting kind of late in the game here for him to change that around where you're really thinking, they're going to win this game.
Two follow-ups here on what you're saying. First, shouldn't Arkansas fans look at Ole Miss and that's the model of hope for what we can be? Because traditionally this is not a good program. I believe before Kiffin got there, I don't think they ever had a 10-2 season. Maybe one or something like that, but he's basically the first coach there to ever have success. Similar state in terms of tax dollars, in terms of population. If they can do it, if they invest in the roster, they invest in the head coach, hey, why can't we do that?
You could do that if you follow that formula, and that formula was to do what? Spend a lot of money on players.
Spend a lot. Lane Kiffin's a $10 million a year coach, and they have a very high NIL budget.
And the only thing that surprised me about that is I thought if Kiffin was successful at Ole Miss, he would have been gone by now. Still can't believe he's not gone.
Wait until Michigan fires Sharon Moore and they call up Lane Kiffin.
Maybe something like that. He could go to Florida. That's a school that you can win at if you've got what it takes. So Florida would be a place. Still don't think Alabama can afford to get rid of
$70 million.
DeBoo, whatever his name.
That's what they're going to be calling him by the end of the year.
Still not sure they've got the money to afford getting rid of him. But I think there are places. I'm telling you, LSU may make a coaching. Brian Kelly's having to answer all these questions, and he's mad. Listen to me right now.
Top 10
I'm telling you right now, LSU is not as good as you think they are. I'm not saying they're not good. They're not that good. They're not the best team in the SEC. They are not. And so if they fall off a little bit later in the year, he could be gone. And so, that could be a place where Kiffin would go.
All right, and the other thing, this attitude of it's just this feeling of we can't close out close games. Who do you put that on? Is that on the players or is that on the coaching staff?
No, it's history. It's Pittman's history of, wow, close games we're going to lose. And not all of those are his fault. I go back to the Auburn game of 2000. Arkansas lost that game because the officials screwed up and made the wrong call. That's not Pittman. He's over there going, you idiot.
2020, the spike, right?
Yeah, the spike, which was a backwards fumble. And they refused to acknowledge it. And then when they acknowledged it, they said, yeah, but we blew the whistle, so there's nothing we can do. And that's not on Pittman, that's on them. So that's one close game for sure that he didn't have anything to do with the loss there. And there have been others that weren't his fault, but there have been some that were. And but it doesn't matter. When you have that kind of a record in close games, you're not going to turn that around until you start winning close games. And you better start doing it now.
All right, moving on. Next question here coming from Big Sexy Hog. All right, G-rated show here with a name like that. Family program. Why do bad things always seem to happen to us? Why do we get so close but just cannot get over the hump? Why does the most random, stupid crap happen to us in a game? I don't think this was a random and stupid situation. I think this was Arkansas was organized, they were controlled, and Ole Miss just made a play.
If you don't take other seasons, other years into consideration, other games, and can look at it logically, you're right. But fans don't do that. So I'm going to say bad karma, that could be it. A curse, that could be it. We need better players, that could be it. We need better coaches, that could be it. It could be any of those things, but the truth is, it happens. Now, here's the problem. It also happens in what? It also happens in basketball. How in the world did they lose to Texas Tech when they had that big lead and they had the game?
6 points, 1 minute to go with the ball.
How do you do that? So it's basketball. Oh, and believe me, Musselman had some of those. All right? Van Horn, you're at the College World Series, and maybe the best shortstop in college baseball makes a bonehead decision, tries to throw to third when he could have had a double play. That causes a problem.
Another first-round pick in left field doing his thing, too.
Yeah, first-round pick in left field makes another bad decision. Those shouldn't happen, but they did happen, and it ended up knocking you out of the World Series. So, and then you could go into the softball program, the soccer program, even track and field. I can't remember the exact details, but Arkansas lost a national championship in track last was it this past spring? I think it was.
I don't know, but there's what's in the 51 or something? I mean, they've had plenty of success down there.
I know they have, but in this one, somebody did something. I think a guy got disqualified. I can't remember the details, but they lost at least tying for a national championship because of a mistake that was made. So it just happens in all sports. And it doesn't do that at all schools, but it does here. And so I think what we need is to bring in some person to, what do you
galvanize?
No, you put in some positive thing.
Like a seance or
a
something.
Seance or something. You just go in and you get some smoke going, and you say some stuff over
reverse the curse.
Over a globe, a little thing that you look into, and maybe you change all that. I don't know.
It seems like Arkansas has tried, though. Like the Brett Bielema hire, right? Like that was a really good hire.
They've tried to do
Chad Morris, maybe not so much. Even when they hired Sam Pittman, they tried. They went out. They threw a lot of money at Lane Kiffin. He still said no. When they hired Chad Morris, they threw a lot of money at Gus Malzahn.
Look at Bielema. He's been dominating the Big Ten, the best conference out there. What are you talking about? And then he gets here, and it doesn't work. Maybe worked a little bit for a while, but then it didn't.
I think they had went to the Rose Bowl.
And now look what he's doing now. He's got Illinois back up there. I mean, come on. It's like, is there something about he comes here and he's not what he was, but if he's somewhere else, he is?
Well, and even though he fell out of favor here, easy guy to like. He's an easy guy to root for.
Absolutely.
It soured here, and I understand that. You don't get results. It's just gonna. And I love Sam Pittman. If he's not going to get the results, the fan base is going to turn on him.
If you want to talk about an easy coach to deal with in press conferences, Brett Bielema. He's your buddy. He's up there talking. He doesn't get
Feels
mad.
like you're at a sports bar.
Yeah, he's just, hey, let's have a good time here. So, I mean, he was well liked by the media.
All right, next question here coming from WV Hog fan who asks, has anyone ever thought about writing a book describing all the different heartbreaking ways Arkansas has lost close games? Mike, we got to get some more optimism. We got to have a beacon of light here.
Okay,
somebody to save the day here. We got doom and gloom. they lost by 6 points on the road to a top 25 team.
If there's somebody out there that wants to write that book, it's not going to be me. If you find somebody that can do the research and you're going to write the book, do it. But I'll tell you this, I will not read it. I do not want to read a book about all the times that Arkansas has lost close games going back forever. Now, there was some guy on one of these message boards, it was on X somewhere, I can't remember. I think you may have told me about it, where he claimed he went back and did research of every Arkansas coach going all the way back to the beginning.
Wow.
And they all combined, none of them had a winning record in one possession games. Now, that's probably baloney.
That can't. I would think Petrino had a win. I don't know about Frank Broyles, but I would think Petrino had a winning record.
But maybe there's something there. I don't know. If it goes all the way back to 1894, it's definitely some kind of bad karma thing.
What's the biggest heartbreak you can ever remember in Arkansas sports history, the way a season or a game ended?
Oh, the College World Series where you dropped the
2018.
You dropped the foul ball, and nobody understood it at the time. It was just like, oh well, okay, come on, we'll win this game, and then you lose that game, and then you lose the next one, and you're like, you can't come any closer to winning a national championship than if I catch this ball, we win. And then I don't catch this ball. It's like, what? Come on. That was bad.
I even think it didn't necessarily end in heartbreak, but 1995, you're right there. Back-to-back national championships, which has happened, 2 or 3 times, I think, since John Wooden did it at UCLA.
That was a little bit different in that they just didn't play well that day. They did things, and then UCLA had a can't remember that guy's name, but he'd never played very well.
Ed O'Bannon, was it?
No, it was that young guy.
Tyus Edney?
I can't remember.
I think he was the one that went coast to coast against.
Anyway, this kid came out of nowhere and had a great game, and they didn't expect that. But that wasn't like you're so close that all you have to do is pick your nose. All you have to do is say hi, and you've got it, and then you don't. Oh man, I don't know how you come any closer to winning it all and don't win it. Maybe in track, if you're right there and you drop the baton or you fall down right before the finish line or something, maybe it could happen like that. But
And in fairness, there's levels to the game. When you drop a heartbreaking football game, the Clint Sterner game, right? It's different than dropping the baton in track.
Yeah, I mean, Sterner. What's interesting about Sterner is that he still gets attacked.
I heard he's still heartbroken over it.
Well, he does, and he's developed kind of a fatalistic attitude about it. He doesn't get mad at these people. He just basically says, if you want to blame me, go ahead. He said, I'm used to it. He said, but I'll never get over it. I understand I screwed up. How many times can I apologize? I blew it. I made a mistake. I did something really dumb. So if you want to call me dumb, yeah, I was dumb.
I believe he's going into the Hall of Honor, Ring of Honor, whatever they call it. I believe the Notre Dame game. I'm sure he's going to get a great standing ovation. All right, more Ask Mike coming up after a quick timeout. Back here on Ask Mike and diving right back into it with questions here. Whippersnapper asking, is Taylon Green grown from last season? He didn't play horrible, but he didn't play amazing either with only 2 touchdowns and some questionable reads in the run game. Whippersnapper, I'm sorry, my man or woman. I'm going to have to blatantly disagree with you. Taylon Green was absolutely sensational. 420 yards of total offense. They are not in that game without Taylon Green.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess if you're talking about somebody playing perfect.
He didn't play perfect,
but he
was
quite perfect. But look, all you have to do is look at where he is right now as opposed to last year. And look at who he's playing, because last year they opened up against UAPB, a terrible team. I promise you, Alabama A&M is better than a lot better than UAPB. I think, we're talking about Arkansas State, but I think Arkansas State this year is every bit as good.
Look what they just did with Iowa State.
Yeah,
right there.
As Oklahoma State was last year, and Arkansas lost that game. And then you want to compare Ole Miss to UAPB is who they played in the third game.
UAB, yes.
UAB. So those are the 3 games last year. It's tougher this year. Okay, at this point last year, Taylon Green had 6 touchdowns and 600 yards of total offense. After 3 games this year against a tougher schedule, he's got 11 touchdowns.
13 total.
Is it 13 total? Yeah, 11 in passing. That's right, 13 total, because he's got 2 rushing. 13 total touchdowns, 1,100 plus yards total offense. So his numbers are much better. And you just can't look at anything that's going on here and not say that he's better than he was a year ago. Markedly better, in my opinion.
Yeah, he looks like an NFL quarterback. And I'm a big college football fan, love the history of the game. I see, when he takes off, I see Vince Young. The length, the number 10, the size of this kid, how easy he runs. He's a special player. I hope he can stay healthy, and I really hope he keeps this up. All right, next question coming from Oklahoma, who says, talk about what technique things you saw from our young kicker, and then why you can't call for a review of a play that should be so easy to review. The Ole Miss teammate there using the hurdle at the line of scrimmage. I think that's a penalty on the, if they're talking about the field goal.
It is a penalty, but it's not.
And you can't review a flag.
Not reviewable.
Anything that's would be a flag, you can't review.
Right. So it was a penalty. They missed it, and it was not reviewable. Sam Pittman didn't say anything specific today about Starzik's technique.
Other than to say he's got a lot of confidence.
Yeah, he has confidence in him. But I didn't get the impression, I think he would have said something if there had been something about the way he was kicking that was off. So I can only conclude that what you really had there was a true freshman that was an excellent kicker, and he'd already kicked a big field goal at home, but you stick him on the road in front of a place like that, and let's face it, Vaught Hemingway is, everybody talks about the way War Memorial used to be when it was all full and it was noisy. Vaught Hemingway is a bigger version of that. It holds about 6,000 or 7,000 more. And it's a wall of noise. And so he's dealing with all of that, and then you're going to put him and ask him to kick these long field goals. I just think there's too much pressure on him, but I expect him to bounce back.
Yeah, they weren't easy field goals. I think it was 49 and 51. Those are tough. This isn't the NFL. And even in fairness, even in the NFL, anything over 50 yards, you're kind of like, all right, it's about a 50-50.
Unless you're the Cowboys kicker. he can make it from anywhere.
Or Cam Little, right? 70 yards in preseason. My goodness.
Wow.
They need to reincarnate that kid. All right, next question coming from Jimmy Hogbo, who says, I think that jerk Kiffin left his injured QB off the injury report intentionally so that he would not prepare for the other quarterback. What do you think about that? We were talking about this earlier, and we both extremely impressed by Trinidad Chambliss.
Yeah, I think he technically didn't do anything wrong, because if you're going to leave Simmons on the available and you don't play him,
And he did play.
then maybe you got something there, but he did go into the game. So
He even ran the ball once.
So that kind of diffuses that. But everybody knows what he was doing, even though he technically didn't violate the spirit of that. But the fact is, he is a jerk. I mean, this is my opinion. It's not fact. I don't like the guy. I've never liked him. I think he's phony. I think when he came over and you had the injured player and he's all concerned and everything, I think he's doing that for looks. I think he goes, after he beats the crap out of Arkansas last year, and he's got his hand around Sam Pittman.
My buddy, yeah.
Yeah, my pal.
Throwing in the
and
fourth quarter
Pittman,
up 50
I'm
points.
thinking, you jerk. Look, the way he's jumped around all over the country, the only thing that surprises me again is that he's still at Ole Miss. And I don't think he'll stay there. I think he's going somewhere else.
Quite frankly, at least as a head coach, it's really the only place he's had success. Florida Atlantic, sure, but they were just winning 8-9 games. Tennessee, it was only 1 year. I think they were 7-6. USC, fired. NFL, fired.
Here's what could happen. Let's say they have a good season this year, but not quite put them over the hump, and once again, they don't make
9-3.
Yeah, and they don't make the playoffs. I think that's when he says, you know what, I'm never going to get there here, but if I go to LSU or I go to Florida or someplace like that, or wherever in the Big Ten, whatever school, I think I can get there from there. That's what'll make him change.
All right, next question here coming from Hill Country Hog, who says, I read your what if on what would have happened if Yurachek had hired Kiffin. I'm glad he didn't. Kiffin may be winning, but he's a Class A phony. As bad as he wants it at Ole Miss, is not going to get to the playoffs again.
Yeah, the problem with that what if is you ask yourself, what Razorback fans would be thinking if he was still here and he had the NIL money and
what if he was 47-18 here?
Yeah,
instead of Pittman being 31-32.
It doesn't matter. They're not going to be thinking he's a jerk. They're going to be.
He's our jerk.
He's
it's
our
that kind
jerk.
of thing.
We don't care. He can take the basketball goal on the road and be dunking on in front of the other team's fans. We like it. He's a cool guy. So, yeah, I understand, but I think it's a real stretch to say you'd wish he weren't here. You're glad he's not here. I think if you really think about it and you ask yourself, if he was here doing what he's doing at Ole Miss, would you still not want him? And I'm saying you would if you had any brains at all.
They love him down there. He's their guy, kind of like, Barry Bonds playing for the Giants. Hated everywhere. But in San Fran, hey, he's ours. It's that kind of thing. And I think as you talk about him hopping around in jobs, I think he's smart enough to know that. He could do this 8, 9, 10 win a year thing at Ole Miss for 10 years until they get apathetic to it. If you go to Florida and they're paying you $15 million a year,
that is true.
You got to win 10, 11 games a year, or else they're going to be like, what the hell are we paying you all this money for?
Look at Brian Kelly's a perfect example of that. I mean, he's been successful, but it's not good enough for them. They want to win the whole thing.
And that's what they're paying him for, and that's what they're paying that roster for, too. All right, next up here, coming from Hog Dogger, who says, I never put much stock in AP polls, but I just saw a video of a lady that is a voter, and she was saying poll results don't really matter that much. Does the NCAA take the AP poll into consideration when making decisions on bowls or playoff teams? Just to clarify here, the NCAA has nothing to do with bowls or playoff teams. That is all controlled by the College Football Playoff Committee.
Yeah, and so let's start with the bowl games that aren't a part of the playoff system, because there are some.
Outback Bowl, Liberty Bowl, etc.
Yeah, but if you're talking about bowls that aren't a part of the playoff system, that's decided by the bowl committee of that town, of that bowl, the people that run that bowl all year long and promote it or whatever in whatever city. And it's done on a pecking order basis. It starts with the conference. Southeastern Conference has this many bowl games. Big Ten has this many. Big 12 doesn't have as many. and there's also a pecking order there, and then even within the conference there's a pecking order. So whatever bowl is the biggest bowl available to an SEC team that's not part of the playoff bowl, that bowl gets to pick first, and they pick the team. Now, would they take the AP poll into consideration? I don't know. You'd have to ask them. I think they probably would, and they'd probably take the coaches poll, and they'd have some other things they decide. I think a lot of times they look at what kind of a draw it will be. Are you going to bring a lot of fans in here? Because they want to make money.
A lot of politicking involved in the bowl game. And that, quite frankly, is probably why Arkansas ends up in the Liberty Bowl. They're close. They'll sell tickets. If we get, Florida, and they play a northern school, are we really going to sell tickets here?
Yeah. Now, as far as the NCAA playoff committee, they got their own poll. They do that.
The committee rankings, correct?
Yeah, they rank you, and they wait 2 or 3 weeks into the season, but then they have a top 25 of their own, and right now they're only going to pick 12 of the top 25. But do they take the AP poll into consideration and the coaches poll? I think I've read that they look at it, but they have a number of things that supposedly they wrap together.
A lot of data, a lot of analytics.
A lot of data, a lot of analytics, and then they concoct this thing. Now, let me just say, if you're going to be in the playoffs, I'm not a fan of committees picking teams for playoffs. It's as simple as I can make it. What high school, anywhere in this country, what high school playoff system is run by a selection committee?
It's played on the field.
You have a specific way you get into the playoffs. So, for instance, what if we just said, you're going to get 3 SEC teams in every year, or 4, or whatever you do, and you say...
And we're going to play 10 conference games, so we have a lot of volume, sure.
We've got 10 conference games. They 3 or 4 teams with the best record, it gets in.
And tiebreakers will.
Yeah, and so it's decided by things like that, not by a bunch of guys in a committee. And you do that all the way across the whole thing. That's the way I would rather see it.
Committee or computers? So the BCS way, where it's all formula, you take the human element out of it, or do you prefer the committee?
I would prefer computers, but still, what I really prefer is it's just as cut and dried as you can get. If you finish first, second, third, or fourth, blah, you do this. Because that's what they do here. If you're in the SEC West, and I think they let 4 in, you get to go into the playoffs. Mm-hmm. Now, again, this brings back horrible memories. But when I was growing up in Texas, I don't care what and they called them districts, not conferences, but you had to win it. You could not be second and go anywhere.
Even if you were second in the state, you had to win your district.
My hometown finished 4th in its district last year and got to go to the playoffs, and they were awful. They got beat like 70 points. They weren't in any way, shape, or form qualified to go to the playoffs. And I think about, we had some good teams that finished second and we didn't get to go. I'm still mad about that.
Mike Irwin still living in the past. Love it. Anytime we get a Texas shout out, there you go. Final question here of the week. A lot of football topic, a lot of great discussion here. How about a basketball question? Edward Clutch saying, I bought tickets for the basketball exhibition game against Memphis and noticed that the Memphis women's team will be playing Vanderbilt before our game. Any idea why the Razorback women did not get that time slot? Really excited for this Memphis exhibition game. Penny Hardaway, John Calipari, they're doing a great job promoting this thing.
Yeah, if I'm Arkansas's women's coach, I'm thinking that's a great idea. Why not do that? But they don't get to decide that. It would be great. You're going on the road to Memphis. You're playing on the road. You got all these Razorback fans of the Razorback men's team. They're already in town. They'll come to the women's game. We'll have a lot of support in Memphis. But what does Memphis think about that? Their women's coach. I'm not doing it. I'm going, wait a minute. Vanderbilt is, I don't know if you've made that drive from Memphis to Vanderbilt. It's a long drive. And I'm thinking, if I'm their coach, they're not going to be driving
all the way across the state.
They're not going to be driving all that distance to go to a women's game. So I don't want to play a game where I've got a bunch of fans of the opponent when I can do without that. So I didn't ask, but I think the Vanderbilt's women, the Memphis women's coach probably went, no, we're not doing that.
All right, Mike Irwin, that's it. Wrapping up this week's edition of Ask Mike. The Hogs get it done in Memphis, no problem this week?
I think they'll win, and I don't think it will be razor thin. I don't know, 2 touchdowns maybe.
Confident team, they get the bounce back. You said, last year against UAB, they kind of struggled coming off that hangover Oklahoma State. They got it done.
Yeah.
Kind of a similar opponent. But Memphis, in fairness, they were pretty impressive there against Troy. Right. He's Mike Irwin. I'm Trey Dare. Thank you so much for checking out this week's Ask Mike.